Hello, 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 hello. And we're live. How have you lot been? Missed my face? Just waiting for you all to join, waiting for Symeon to join before we start today's conversation. Let me set myself up. How have you all been? Talk to me. Dearest Deets, on the 9th of August, hi Jennifer, just waiting for Symeon to join us. Mr. Brown will be discussing the books that he finds interesting, seminal texts within the canon of. Hey Bola, thanks for joining. We're just waiting for Symeon to turn up on our dashboard. How have you both been? Or how is everyone else doing? Still waiting for Symeon. He should be coming quite soon. I miss doing lives. I miss having this rapport with you guys. I miss the whole shebang. The heat is insane. I don't know, like, how many people are going to actually tune in today, because I think most of the people are going to be quite drunk or outside enjoying what the fruits of what summer has brought us, which is this incredible heat. Hey ho, some of the books that we may discuss I'll foreground you them now. The New Jim Crow is one of them. It really is. Sam Salmon's Lonely Londoners, An American Marriage. Yeah, everyone needs one. And Things Fall Apart. Let me just check if I've sent. Maybe I didn't actually send it to him. That's why I'm still waiting. I've got my water here, don't worry. Otherwise my throat would be completely parched trying to do this live. If I could ask you all a question, and it will be the following question. What books do you think are instrumental to the British canon? Especially to the Black British canon? Comment below. Or amazing. Symeon's just joined us. Hello, Mr.
What's
Brown.
happening? How's life?
Life is good. We're all
Can you see me?
we can see you very well, actually.
Okay, listen. I
And
have to give you a bit of a warning.
what is it?
I've been drinking. I've been
drinking. Hey! I think it's the best way of doing it live, because it means that you're going to be loose and foot free.
Okay, all right. Okay, cool.
You're
Well,
not the only one who's been drinking. So what are you drinking? What's your beverage of choice
you
for
know
today?
what? I've been drinking some good things. This is a Pinot Blanc. This is a white wine. It was recommended. Um, apparently, it was a wine of the day on some BBC show or something like that, which is very kind of, I don't know, like a
Should you
diva
even be
approach.
watching the BBC?
Sorry.
Should you even be watching the BBC?
You know, that's a good point. I would say that I actually wasn't watching it. So the recommendation came from somebody who was watching it. They picked it up. It's actually a wine that you can buy from Aldi, actually. Someone recommended it to me. My other half recommended it to me. And then I had drank one sip and I was like, boy, this is my summertime drink. Do you know what I mean? This is me for the summer. You know, got one drink, two drinks.
2 drinks. Making
So,
the whole thing happen. Making the whole thing happen. Okay. Let's get down to business.
cool, let's go.
Business is going to be flowing quite freely in this live. So, in terms of Black British books or sort of Black literature in particular, which one? I think I've already foregrounded one. There's Things Fall Apart. Let's start with that because you mentioned it earlier. Which books have inspired you? I can't hear you anymore. Have you decided to?
Hey, wait, sorry, you can't hear me.
Now we can. Now we can.
I mean, you said what books have inspired me.
Yeah.
This is an interesting question because I'm not sure that I would say that I read books for inspiration. I would say that I read books more to kind of get a sense of the human condition, to understand the human condition, to understand humanity. I read books to kind of get a sense of storytelling, books that have been recommended. I read books to kind of learn. Read books for inspiration is not necessarily something that I would say that I do. So when I think about what book has inspired me, I guess the question is, inspired me to do what? I think there's been books that I've read, which certainly as somebody who is in the business of maybe storytelling and the work of documenting history, there are books that make me feel certainly maybe galvanized and energized to feel like, you know what, I really need to raise my game in terms of the quality of work that I'm doing and capturing and things of that nature. I mean, the books that have done that, I mean, where do I even start? I mean, some of them I've sent to you because I just think that they have so much value in terms of what they're capturing, what they're documenting, you know.
So inspiration may
Lonely
not be
London. Sorry?
inspiration may not be the correct term, but which books have galvanized you? Let's put it in that sense. Which books have given you a different perspective on the world?
Okay. I would say...
Or shifted your thought?
I would say some of the most affecting books that I have read of late, I would say The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander, which is basically about how mass incarceration in America, particularly the disproportionate effect of over-policing of African Americans, is a new form of Jim Crow, which is an age-old system of disenfranchisement of African Americans, Black people in Americas, and there are crossovers in terms of how that works here as well. I would say that the book Evicted, which is about the housing system in America, which is arguably the feminine version of the new Jim Crow in terms of looking at if mass incarceration is what has disenfranchised African American men, then the housing system of America is what has disenfranchised African American women. Evicted is a great book on the housing system and kind of capitalized housing in America. That's a great book. Lonely Londoners, I think, in terms of capturing post-war migration and the sensibility, a very masculine sensibility, I think that was a great book that I enjoyed, and it makes me think a bit about capturing the evolution of those people's grandchildren now, I guess, which maybe I might be considered to be part of. All Things Fall Apart, great kind of fictional portrait of kind of the impact of colonialism on certainly the Nigerian South. Half a Yellow Sun by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. Half a Yellow Sun for me was really a great piece of historical fiction. I think that I prefer history to be captured in fiction. I think there. Sorry.
Rather than the supposed reality of it, I have a huge problem with history, with the idea of history, because
okay, I'm listening.
I think history, as it's taught, as a one truth solution, as in things happen and this is exactly how they happen, doesn't always allow for the ambiguity of what an event is or a specific era is. And I think fiction, when it talks about history, when it reacts to history, has a more expansive view, because it allows for a lot more accuracy in the understanding of history.
Now, I would say that I agree with that, and I think for me, I think that sometimes there can be a conflict between facts and truth. Sometimes you have the facts, but the facts don't speak to what a truth is. And sometimes you have the truth, but the truth doesn't always speak to what the facts are. So I feel like with historical fiction, I think a lot of the time it's an attempt to find truth via imagined events, but using kind of historical sources as inspiration and grounding. So for me, I think that historical fiction does try to reconcile the issues that you have with it. Hello, can you hear me?
Oh, we can hear you fine. You're doing very
cool.
well.
Oh, you were very still there, and I thought maybe I was a bit frozen. I'm a bit far from.
I'm being still because I'm taking in what you're saying, just in case I want to also reply.
Cool. I'm a bit far from the Wi-Fi hotspot, so I was.
No, your Wi-Fi is doing quite well on this live.
Okay, you know what? Big up EE then. EE coming through with the Fire Connect.
Well, let's big up EE and let's also big up the books that you've selected. Let's start with because it's a great selection, and I think they span the gambit of sort of post-colonial thought, from the pre-colonial interaction that you specified in Things Fall Apart, to Half a Yellow Sun, which I haven't read it, so you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Half a Yellow Sun. I think Half a Yellow Sun was one of the books that I think, without that book, I don't think I would be as big a reader, because I think it showed me the possibilities of what work can do. Like fiction, which is built on ultimately a truth, a huge event, a huge marquee event, especially for people who are of Igbo heritage. And I just felt like it was just such a masterpiece, and Chimamanda produced it at such a young age as well, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, no, I thought the work was really remarkable. I'm not sure if that was one of the books that I even spoke to you about beforehand, but
no, it wasn't.
It just came to me. It just came.
It's neither here nor there. I think as we said, like, the discussion should flow naturally. But I would like to start off with Things Fall Apart, though.
Okay, let's go.
Because historically speaking, Things Fall Apart came at a time when, how can I put it? Came at a time when the world was suffering a big shift. It was suffering a change to its idea of self, in terms of new countries being formed, in terms of disposition of power sources, and Andersonian conceptions of time and nationhood were all being, in a way, torn asunder. So to have a book like Things Fall Apart come at that time was so opportune because it made sure that the idea of the post colony or the idea of a nation had to be interrogated through the episteme. And the clever part of the narrative of Things Fall Apart is the fact that Achebe um, does it through a familial lens. He takes things, um, the macro climate of what's happening and Things Fall Apart, and he does it, and he twists it into a familial saga, very much like the Greek, very much like the Greek sagas that we're used to in Western writing, because he was writing for his own people, but he was also writing with a view to set the story straight from an African perspective. Can you hear me?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm listening. Yeah. I'm listening. I'm agreeing.
Do you want to pick up on any points?
I mean, there wasn't anything that you said that I didn't disagree with, and I think my natural state is always to kind of intervene where I hear something which I feel could be elaborated on, or I disagree with, but actually all of that I thought was true. Yeah.
Cool. It, for me, I think Things Fall Apart was a novel that began the whole history of Black people, especially being taken seriously as writers, because it wasn't
Okay, I think
just,
that's interesting.
you know what I mean, because it's part of the Heinemann series, and it allowed many sort of writers to come and ride on its coattails and publish.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I know that obviously, in terms of getting recognition from Western gatekeepers for, you know, writers from the so-called post-colonial world, and from, you know, whether it's the the Asian continent or whether it's Africa or the Caribbean, and that's been a long process. And certainly when this book came to be formed, just fresh off this break with colonialism, or during this process. I mean, we're still breaking with colonialism now. I mean, if we ever
Yeah,
can. I mean, yeah, I think that's a part of it. For me, I think recognition is important, but for me, honestly, if I look at what I read, I have actually never really read the English classics, the kind of English, you know, the so-called English canon, the Western canon. I don't really read that. I mean, I try and read the post-colonial canon. You know, I mean, your Chebbies and so forth. These are the people who I've started off engaging with, and who I vibe with. So in terms of their reception, I mean,
I,
I mean, who they're checking for, I ain't really checking for. That's what I know. But my thing though is that the work in itself, I feel that it's just the perfect piece of fiction in terms of capturing that post-colonial moment and looking at what colonialism really did in terms of it being able to locate the sensibility of this pre-colonial person, or of this pre-colonial man, I should say, this masculine sensibility, looking at how effectively it was contorted and distorted and put under pressure and reimagined by this huge event, and then to be able to humanize somebody in a Okonkwo who, let's get real, is certainly by our standards today, it's highly
he's a brute.
problematic. Sorry.
Okonkwo was a brute. He
Yeah,
deserved everything he
that's what
got.
I'm saying. But it was able to humanize, contextualize, and then look at basically how, you know, how the ideas that made this very much this particular selfhood were ultimately, was this, the ideas that made it were almost banished and confined and marginalized and given no future to this, to the point that he had to, I don't know if anyone's read it, so I don't want to spoil the end, but you know, to the point where he was at breaking point. And I just felt that the journey that it took him on and the world that it brought you into, and the quality of the storytelling and the sentences and the way it was masterful stuff. And certainly, in my opinion, I just feel that certainly when it comes to storytelling, I just feel like West Africans and people of West African heritage, I just feel like it's just what they just. I just feel like it's what they maybe what we do. But I don't know. I just think that it's just West African storytellers are just almost second to none. Like just literally second to none. So even these days when I read supposedly the modern classics that everyone told you to read by so-called man booker authors, and I read it and I think to myself, listen, you people ain't got on a chebby. You people can't touch these people. When it comes to the storytelling here, like it's like it's just flawless. It's the craftsmanship. The craftsmanship is flawless, let alone the content of it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I liked your inclusion of the Lonely Londoners within the same scope, because I think the Lonely Londoners and Things Fall Apart were published at a similar time, so they have a bit of a relationship that sometimes doesn't get sort of foregrounded. And I can't remember the plot of the Lonely Londoners as vividly as I can remember what happened in Things Fall Apart, because I didn't write a dissertation on the Lonely Londoners. I wrote on Things Fall Apart. But would you like to tell us a bit more about what happens in the Lonely Londoners?
I mean, the Lonely Londoners basically is the story of the post-war Caribbean migrants, particularly the male post-war Caribbean migrant. It's very masculine. I wouldn't say, for me, all things fall apart. It's flawless fiction. I don't think that No London is flawless, but it is funny. It is readable. It is in the voice of this kind of
rickety. It has this rickety nature.
What do you mean?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
You've cut out a little bit.
I cut out. Am I here now?
Yeah, we can hear you, but you're very faint. Have you decided to cut your microphone?
What about now?
Now you're fine.
Fine, yeah. I mean, it's like The Lonely Londoners is funny. It's iconic. It's very accessible, very easy to read. I think the writing is really, really good. It's not flawless in the same way that All Things Fall Apart is flawless, and it doesn't have the same sense of drama, or it's not as epic as Half a Yellow Sun. So I'm trying to be.
It's more of a how can I put it? It's more of a as a novel. It works more as a domestic scene. Let's just put it in that level. Because Things Fall Apart, in its expansiveness, it's an epic. It announces the beginning of the post-colonial canon, practically. It says to itself, I'm going to write a great book, and this is what great books do. Whereas I think The Lonely Londoners is more about discussing and creating a language and pinpointing a specific moment in time. The stories of the parties that they attend, the music that they listen to, and the beauty of that kind of play that happens within the Lonely Londoners is something that you can't avoid.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with that. The Lonely Londoners, for me, has it's a great mood. It captures a particular sensibility of what I consider to be the original Mandem, the original kind of post-war Black British Mandem. That these guys were Mandem, like their vibes. What do? They spend all day trying to make money to get gums, to go and draw women. Like, yeah. It was like, I mean, like, it was very masculine. I mean, some people find the sexism to be quite strong. I do think that for some sensibilities, they may find it challenging. For me, as someone who is post-Mandem, I feel like I found it somewhat relatable as much as you can as somebody who is very much, you know, third generation migrant established here with
Mm,
privileges that these people didn't have. But I did find it like a thread that was familiar, and you know, it's really mapping this kind of London that we read about or see in pictures and films, but actually these people weren't particularly they weren't given a particular voice at the time, and I just feel like it's a great look at the lives that they were living, like living in ghettos in places now that are gentrified, like Notting Hill and so forth, Ladbroke Grove, and I think that it's a great history book in terms of understanding the landscape of London, and there's like some great quotes about London being a place of multiple worlds that you don't know about unless you're in it, and you say that
exactly.
something
London.
will happen in one, but you don't know about it until you read the paper. I mean, now these days it's more
London is
about Twitter, but I mean, I just feel like it gives a great insight and it has a lot of value. And for me, it's a book that I can recommend because I know that it's quite accessible and it's quite funny.
No, I absolutely agree with you because it's quite funny because the title itself is a bit of a misnomer in a way because they're not lonely. They're continuously in a ever growing community. They're hustlers. They're people that you know just they're getting by their wits. You see certain people who are rich, you know, certain black people who are doing well for themselves, and that is contrasted with the black people who are not doing so well for themselves, are down and out. Um, you know, what we should do next, Symeon, is talk about some of the non-fiction books that you mentioned, because you didn't mention American Marriage this time in your list.
Oh, I forgot about that book. I love American Marriage. That book is
Shall
cold.
we talk? Before we do that, let's talk about American Marriage, then we can get into some more crazy stuff when it
I mean,
comes to institutional racism, where we can have more of a debate.
the thing is, right? I just see American Marriage, right? I just see that book as hoodlit. Like it's high end hoodlit. When I say hoodlit, it's like I don't know if people know about like Sister Soldier's kind of Coldest Winter Ever, or these kind of books that deal with this kind of like the kind of storylines that you might find in a soap opera, love triangles, all these kind of things, and it can be quite what's the word? Can be quite crude the way that it deals with it. American Marriage for me kind of dabbles in like those some of those kind of narratives, but at the same time it really unpacks humanity, really unpacks kind of so-called black love. It really unpacks these kind of conversations about what is marriage, what are the conflicts. It looks at the kind of conflict between a aspiring working class southern African American sensibility versus the kind of upper middle class African American sensibility, and it looks at the kind of the American condition of wanting to be better, wanting to elevate, wanting to make something of yourself. It's kind of rugged individualism, and I think it marries that with the age-old story underpinning it, but not necessarily being the driving point of the book, which is the American justice system and its unfairness, which I don't think is the crux of the story, to be honest with you, but is a big part of driving the plots forward. And for me, it's just about the kind of multi-dimensional ways that love works and all the different ways that you can have loving relationships or loveless relationships, or what happens when love is not enough, or I think, or looking at the differences between love and a relationship. And I think it really puts a lot of these things under the lens. And I just found that it was written in a way that made it super enjoyable and engaging in a way that was kind of high end, but also stereotypically hoodlit. And I don't know, I really liked the book. I just thought that it just had a lot of drama. I don't think any of the characters were overwhelmingly likable, but for me, apart from one or two, but for me, that just made the characters more nuanced. And yeah, I thought American Marriage was dope.
I have to say, I found American Marriage from the beginning a bit of a letdown because even though you mentioned it's drama, it's hoodlittiness, and it's kind of pretensions to also expose the American justice system. I found
No, I don't think that it was trying to expose the American justice system.
not expose it, but they elliptically kind of clipped it into the narrative. It was like it's almost like a blade, just clipping another blade in terms of narrative forces. It does that, but what I really wanted to say is the following. I like the way that American Marriage used very sort of American or very sort of novelistic tropes. For example, the letters that are written between, I forget her name. The characters' names have all gone out of my head because I read this so long ago.
Which one?
The main female character. Celestial. And whatever his name is again. What's his name again?
What, Roy? Andre?
Roy. Small Roy. Celestial, which kind of harks back again to slavery and the slave narratives that were used in order to emancipate, and also in order to discuss or put into history from a slave perspective their understanding of what happened during slavery. So the book kind of borrows from that, and then it has all sorts of other layers of questioning. It questions the role of the man and the woman within a marriage, who has control over whom. It questions things like fidelity and what it means to be honest and to be loved, and then it questions whether a person can, in essence, marry someone and own them forever, because Celestial and Roy's big scene at the end, I don't want to really spoil it for too many people, but Celestial's and Roy's big scene at the end was almost, it was farce. It was pure farce, you know? It had all of the elements that you can imagine. It had violence, it had swearing, it had all of that love making in between. And then it had this kind of weird sort of ending where they decide to I'm not going to give it away, but they decide to do something that people would just find a bit weird, you know? But as a novel, I feel its complexities and its downright lewdness at points are not served well by its structure.
I mean, I know you had issues with the book, issues that I can't relate to. Sorry, I thought that book was lit. I thought sorry, I can't relate to it. I just thought the book. I found
it a little bit misogynistic in the way that.
Sorry?
I found it a little bit misogynistic.
I don't see how you can accuse this kind of marquee black feminist writer, a woman, of writing a misogynistic book. I just don't know how it holds.
Women
I think that the main character, who was a woman, Celestial, I think she's afforded agency, she's afforded class privilege, she's afforded characteristics which make it uncomfortable based on the kind of framing of certainly black women in America, in the sense that this is a woman of agency, this is a woman of privilege, this is a woman with things which most black women are not supposed to have. She has options. And I thought like she wasn't a likable character based on her basically being an upper middle class brat. And I think that I think those things are what made her interesting. Sorry, yeah.
Symeon, I don't know how you can make that conclusion about Celestial. How is Celestial unlikable because of her class privilege?
Sorry. How is she middle class? How is she upper middle class brat?
Yeah,
I mean, she's an upper middle class brat.
No, I'm just saying, but because of her class privilege that she's afforded, I don't believe that in itself is enough to not like the character.
But hang on. But you didn't like Celestial's portrayal.
What did she do?
Sorry?
What did she do that made her so how can I put it? So much of a brat. Let's put it that way.
I mean, she was an upper middle class brat. I mean, like that's what she was. I mean, like, I don't understand. I mean, I don't have any. The thing is with Celeste, right, is that I I liked the character. I liked the writing of Celestial. I thought it was interesting. I think that in terms of what she wanted, she was very much entitled. She approached marriage the same way most middle class people approach marriage. Marriage is supposed to elevate you and enable you to have particular access to certain things. And if it doesn't serve that
purpose, it's lost its, oh God.
was that was her approach to it. So when obviously Roy at one point is an upwardly mobile young black graduate, when he's upward, she can marry him, she can engage with him, despite her coming from a more elevated class than him. But when he obviously falls into the trap, supposedly, of a third of African American males in the system, and therefore his options and life chances diminish, suddenly this guy is disposable. He's like, I don't sign up for this nonsense. I'm not your baby mama. That's what I ain't one of these women. Listen, I ain't that. I ain't want that background. Listen, you are no longer useful. And the truth is that I thought like the class. Sorry, I thought like the class. Sorry.
As a female character, why would Celestial have to stick by her man? Even if he was innocent, why would Celestial have to stick by her man?
Well, hang on. But this is the whole point of the tension of what it looks like, right? The whole point of marriage, right, historically as an institution, is that it's about two people becoming one person, and regardless through, whatever the oath is. What's the oath? The oath is like through richer, for poorer, all this kind of stuff. I'm not somebody who believes in marriage per se, so I felt like the deconstruction of what marriage is in its raw form, as a tool of the bourgeoisie, I thought that was great in American marriage. I'm not pro-marriage, but I felt like in terms of what it's supposed to be, this is what the book ultimately deconstructs, right? So she negates supposedly that oath and what it is that supposedly married people are supposed to do, because ultimately this is not what upper middle class people mean when they get married. This is not what they expect. This is what's supposed to be the outcome.
It confounds, basically what you're saying is it just confounds her expectations of marriage, which means that she's allowed to default.
But bear in mind, listen, she's cool with the stepping out. When boy was stepping out doing his thing, she was all cool with that. Like, she was like, boy, you know what, man's stepping out. Upper middle class people step out in marriages. Like, this is not a scandal. Ultimately, it's the respectability. It's the respectability that maintains the institution, what it enables and what it brings, and the ability to make more look, we see all these celebrities. We've seen the entanglement with the Smiths. We've seen how the Clintons work. We've seen how the Beckhams work. We've seen what these, marriage is just like a form of kind of, it's like a corporate
contract,
because of corporate missions, you know what I'm saying, or particular people. It benefits a particular strata of society. So, you see all kinds of interesting things in which the supposed progressive middle classes, who are all about live your life, do what you want to do, la, 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 ultimately live conservative, traditional lives. They get married, they own property, they reproduce these values because it's in their interest, and they involve and it rolls via marriage and so forth, la, la, la. Work-class people, ironically, sometimes evoke more traditional ideas of marriage and gender, but at the same time, sometimes there is a marriage, sometimes there is an integrated family, sometimes there's multiple baby mamas, all kinds of, but they ironically live more so-called progressively, or certainly unorthodoxly. So for me, it's like the book just deconstructs marriage, and I don't even think it does this necessarily from, obviously the grounding is obviously African American sensibility and black people, but actually I think it does this in a way which is more explorative of these ideas.
Transfers universally. Now that I've got you talking, let's move on to another book that's a little bit more.
So Eduardo, what's the time, by the way?
It's 6:30.
Okay, all right. Let's try and be done by 6:40.
Let's
I've got 10% battery, so let's try and make this work.
we'll do Evicted and the New Jim Crow, and then we'll leave it at that.
Okay.
So let's do Evicted.
Evicted! What a great book!
Yeah.
What a great book! The problem is with this book is that it's a very thick book, and I actually cheated and I listened to the audiobook, and the audiobook was
How's that cheating?
read. But sorry?
How is it cheating?
Audiobooks are cheating. Let's not pretend that they're not cheating. Audiobooks are definitely cheating, but it is what it is. You're still consuming the material, so and I still paid for it. So I mean, that is what it is. And I did have the hard copy of the book, and I have read the hard copy of the book, but I mainly supplemented it via the audiobook. It's quite a thick book, but this is I mean, this book won the Pulitzer. I mean, that's all you need to know. It won the Pulitzer. This book will make you kind of a communist, though. It will make you hate property, make you hate landlords. It will make you hate the kind of property owning classes in America. It will make you think how grossly unfair the entire system is. It's just a remarkable person-led insight into how American housing works, who it works for. And it's like we think of America primarily through the lens a lot of the time of the state and policing and the criminal justice system. And that is a big part of America. But it's housing where you really see,
the disparity.
What's going on. I mean, I don't know if you read it or not, but I really recommend the audiobook to everybody. It's well read. The voice of the reader is great. The book is, I mean, it will make you landlordism. I promise you that. You will just think to yourself, landlords are some of the worst people about, because I mean, it's like people are making huge amounts of money effectively from the right to shelter. You know, the right to lay your head.
Which is a basic human right.
I mean, and I think most people would say that.
Needs.
Sorry. Yes.
In Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Basically, Evicted is one of the most affecting books that I've read, I have to say, and I feel like in terms of understanding America, 2 books need to be read: the new Jim Crow and Evicted.
Do you want to give me a gloss of the new Jim Crow?
I mean, the new Jim Crow is just about mass incarceration in America. The new Jim Crow is about how mass incarceration disenfranchises African Americans, how it stops them from voting, how it targets them, and how the system is just deeply unfair. And I mean, there are parallels with the UK, although albeit we have very, very different systems and different worlds. I mean, I was out with the police last week on raids, and they were supposed to be suppressing violence, getting like dangerous drug dealers off the streets. And in the end, when I was out with them on a whole day filming, what was their success rate? Getting free spliffs off the street.
Well done to them. We should actually discuss this. Because we've reached the end of your book selection. We can have a general discussion on things. One of our people has put forward this question: would you have quit your job if someone in the workplace didn't apologize for using the N-word? Bola Tujudi.
Would you quit your job if your workplace did not apologize for using the N-word? Would I quit my job? I mean, let me think about this. I feel like I would quit my job over a major injustice, 100%. Although I think you have to be smart about it. The truth is, there are laws, right? There are laws about the way that institutions and companies are supposed to work in terms of being fair, equitable, and so forth, right? So if I felt like these were being breached and I challenged them and I was being marginalized, listen, I'm taking my employer to court. That's what I know. Listen, laws better come true. So, yeah, I feel like challenging major injustices at the workplace. I feel like I will be confident to do that. What's happening at the BBC though is interesting. Let me think about what it is that I should say. I think you have to respect anybody.
What's going on at the BBC?
I think that you have to jump in. Sorry.
Before you jump in, give us the context.
Obviously, the BBC is a reporter was reporting on somebody using the N-word. They then said the N-word. People felt that they shouldn't have said the N-word. The BBC then doubled down and said they had the right to say the N-word. They've now retracted that and said they're sorry. I'm not somebody who doesn't believe.
Lucy Wolseley, was it?
Sorry?
Was it Lucy Wolseley, woman, the historian?
I wasn't paying too much. I think they were a historian. I wasn't paying attention to who said it.
I think it is Lucy Wolseley.
My view is right. Is that I'm not somebody who believes that there is no context by which you can't say that word. I think that if you're reporting and someone says something, there is arguably a case to be made by which you say it. Bearing in mind, you're all broadcasting and reporting is a kind of negotiation between yourself and the audience, what their sensibility is, what they feel, what's going to hurt them. You don't want to cause offense or distress for the sake of it. I mean, it's why you have particular standards in place, right? So
Yeah.
obviously, if most black people feel distressed by hearing the N word, then I think we should have a policy where you don't say it. This is fine. But obviously that has to be made clear from the get-go. If somebody says something and you're reporting it, for me, I've heard the word many times, more times and use it than I have on the street. So I mean, it's like the word does not cause me personal distress. I don't know how many people it causes personal distress when said broadly. Obviously, when it's directed at you in a particular way, that's different. I think reporting the word and reporting its usage is very different. But
To
the response has
espousing
been,
and believing in the term itself.
sorry,
But to actually espousing the term and believing it to be.
I think there's a difference between the term used with intent and the term also being used frivolously. So just while white folks sing along and using the N word without thinking, I think that's wrong. Using it frivolously, I think that just using the word of intent to demean somebody, that's wrong. Clearly, I think reporting on what's being said historically and accurately and saying this word was used and maybe using the word, I think there's grounds that's perfectly fine. But obviously, the people felt distressed by it, and therefore the institution has to reply. So, I mean, there have been cases this year, or in the past 10 years, or past 5 years even, where the BBC and institutions like it have acted abysmally and treated black people awfully, which for me would have merited mass, what's the word?
Firings.
Mass resignations and protests. And this is where
Never
you need to
happened.
look at the institutional biases of the institution.
Yeah.
But those do not merit the same level of response. So for me, I query when it is that action is taken.
I would counter that by saying that there are ways in which you can report things by saying, for example, the deleted expletive instead of saying fuck. We don't have a watershed here. I can say whatever I like. You can swear as much as you like on my.
No, listen. I hear what you're saying. The thing is that in this kind of a situation, right? It's like if I was doing the report, I wouldn't have used the word. I would have said the N word. Everybody knows what the N word is.
Exactly.
I personally don't feel that it was necessary.
Okay, guys, I think we've reached the end of our little section, even though that it was getting spicy and hot. Symeon has already explained to you what was going on, which is that his phone battery was about to die. But I think we managed to get a sense of the books that he's reading and the amazing mind that he possesses. So, next time I'm on, please tune in. See you later.